What's something that most people don't know but should? Story 1. I was working at a college when some kid decided to deep fry chicken in his apartment. Not a little oil, a full pot of oil. He drops in a wing, and the oil overflows onto the burner. Instead of just turning off the heat, this genius throws water on it. It flashed like a scene from a Michael Bay movie. Fire alarm goes off, sprinklers drench 6 apartments, and every single belonging in those units gets destroyed. We spent 8 hours sucking up water and repairs took a month. The best part, someone later asked, people know not to do that, right? Nope. No, they do not. Tilda, former firefighter. Story 2. I once had an oven fire, and my neighbor came rushing in, trying to help. Before I could react, they were running for the pantry, yelling, "We'll put flour on it!" I nearly had a heart attack. I managed to slam the oven door shut before they turned my kitchen into a war zone. They meant well, but let me just say, never use flour to put out a fire. It's like throwing confetti at an explosion. Firefighters later told me baking soda works, but honestly, my trust in humanity hasn't recovered. Story 3. I work in a restaurant with a bunch of people in their 20s and 30s, and I've been watching them get sucked into sports gambling. They talk like they've cracked the code, like if they just study the stats enough, they'll beat the system. I tell them, guys, these companies make billions, they are not wrong. One dude actually tried to explain odds to me, like I didn't know how it worked. I nearly lost it. The bookies don't guess, my guy. They hedge their bets, shift the odds, and make sure you lose. I've officially hit the old man shouting at cloud stage of my life. Story 4. I learned the hard way that not saying anything is also an option. Once my boss called a meeting and asked for feedback on a new policy. I, being young and stupid, raised my hand and explained, politely I swear, why it wouldn't work. The room went silent. My boss stared at me. Then someone muttered, "Did they, though? Seems like they had other options." Next thing I knew, I was on every crappy shift imaginable for the next 3 months. Moral of the story: sometimes silence is free and opinions are expensive. Story 5. My 10-year-old absolutely roasted a woman in the school drop-off lane. She saw a BMW cut someone off and, completely serious, said, "His mom must be an asshole because she drives a BMW, right?" I swear I almost crashed. We never told her that explicitly. She just observed. Honestly, she's not wrong. BMWs don't even have turn signals, as far as I can tell. I'm considering adding this moment to her college application under critical thinking skills. Story 6. Never buy a boat. Find a friend with a boat. I thought I was living the dream when I got mine, until I realized it's just a floating hole that eats money. One weekend I was fixing the motor. The next, the trailer needed repairs. Then I needed a new trailer. Some guy at the dock saw me struggling and just nodded. The 2 happiest days in a boat owner's life are the day they buy it and the day they sell it. I laughed at the time. Now I cry. He was right. Story 7. A pickle in a bottle of water will hydrate you better than just water. I've been doing this for years and it's never failed me. Feel like you're getting sick? Pickle. Weirdly tired? Pickle. Dehydrated after a night out? Pickle. A single pickle has more electrolytes than like 8 Gatorades. One time I told a friend this and they scoffed until they tried it. The next week they texted me, "I'm not sick until I've had a pickle and am sick." Welcome to the club. Story 8. I used to think Reddit was full of experts, but then I joined R Cleaning Tips and realized, nope. People were out here recommending shaving cream to clean glass, vinegar on literally everything, and one guy confidently said you could use flour to put out a grease fire. I started fact-checking everything after that. Now, whenever I need real advice, I don't even bother with forums. I just find a professional on YouTube. It's either that or risk turning my kitchen into a science experiment gone wrong. Story 9. HR does not work for you. I repeat, HR works for the company. I found this out the hard way when I trusted HR with a confidential issue. Thought they'd help, thought they'd have my back. Nope. 2 weeks later, my manager suddenly had a very detailed list of my complaints. Ever since then, I've lived by a simple rule. HR is not your friend. HR is the bouncer at a nightclub, making sure you don't ruin the party for the people who actually own the place. Story 10. One time I asked on our plumbing if flushing the occasional tampon was really that bad. They told me I didn't deserve to own a house. No, seriously. Apparently a single tampon can ruin an entire plumbing system. I thought they were exaggerating until my neighbor's sewage line backed up, and it cost her thousands to fix. She swore she only flushed a few. That was the day I made a personal vow. Nothing goes down the toilet except toilet paper and regret. Story 11. I was today years old when I learned that wet pot holders can literally burn your hands off. Apparently, if you grab a hot pan with a damp towel, the heat flashes the water into steam, and boom, third-degree burns. Someone told me this years ago, and I laughed it off. Until it happened to me. I tried to grab a baking sheet with a slightly damp oven mitt. My hand lit up in pain like I'd grabbed a hot coal. My fingers were useless for a week. So yeah, thanks for the warning, Mr. 3 years too late. Story 12. One time I posted a super detailed, well-researched response to a technical question about gold plating. I even included links to safety equipment because, cyanide was involved. The original poster lost their mind, called me an idiot, and got me banned from the subreddit. The best part? They were trying to use the exact product I invented. That's when I realized you can have a PhD, you can literally hold the patent, and someone on the internet will still tell you you're wrong. Story 13. A guy once told me, you can find evidence to back up any opinion. I remind myself of this all the time. The internet isn't about being right, it's about sounding confident. One time I saw someone confidently explain how welding cast iron was totally fine and would last forever. Another commenter, who went to welding school, explained why it wouldn't. The first guy doubled down and called him a shitty welder. That's when it hit me. People don't want the truth. They want to win the argument. Story 14. If you ever get pulled into a debate about tariffs, just remember, the country imposing the tariff is the one that pays. Someone once told me, America isn't paying those tariffs, China is. My dude, that is not how tariffs work. The company importing the goods pays the extra cost. And do you know what they do next? They pass that cost on to you. That's why suddenly, your favorite $5 item is now $8. That's the whole point of a tariff, to make foreign goods more expensive. It's not some magic money-making scheme, it's just an extra tax on you. Story 15. I'll never forget the moment I realized I was wasting so much time trying to save money. I grew up broke, so I had that mindset where I'd spend hours driving to different thrift stores to find a $20 item for $5. It took me years to realize that my time was worth more. I could either waste half a day saving $10, or I could just buy the damn thing and use my time for something that actually mattered. The second I let that go, my whole life got easier. Story 16. I've worked in healthcare for almost a decade, and let me tell you, sleep is not optional. People act like being exhausted is normal, but lack of sleep literally messes with your brain. Your memory gets worse, your emotions go haywire, and your decision-making becomes absolute trash. I had a patient once tell me, I feel like I'm losing my mind. I asked how much sleep they were getting. 3 hours a night. 3. I wanted to shake them. Y'all, sleep isn't a suggestion. It's maintenance for your brain. Story 17. The first time I performed CPR, I was shocked. Not just by how intense it was, but by how unlike the movies it looked. No one wakes up gasping dramatically like they do on TV. Most people don't wake up at all. CPR is brutal. Ribs break, people come back with severe brain damage, and the survival rate is low. It's important and everyone should know how to do it, but just understand that it's not some magical, life-saving trick. It's a last-ditch effort to maybe give someone a chance. Story 18. A while back, my buddy got super into index fund investing and kept telling me, "Dude, it's so easy." I didn't believe him. I thought investing meant staring at stock charts and screaming into a headset like in the movies. Then he broke it down. You put money in. You leave it alone. That's it. I felt like an idiot. The whole time I was waiting for some big trick, but no, just put money in an index fund and don't touch it. I could have been doing this years ago instead of trying to beat the system like some wannabe Wolf of Wall Street. Story 19. I once left a bad review for a business in Dubai. You know, like a normal human. Next thing I knew, I was getting messages from people warning me to delete it immediately. Turns out, leaving a bad review in Dubai can literally get you detained. Like, pulled off a plane and questioned. I deleted that review so fast I nearly broke my phone. Honestly, the more I learn about the UAE, the less I want to go. A wonder of the world. On paper. Story 20. One of my coworkers swears by the no pain, no gain mentality when it comes to fitness. Meanwhile, I lost 70 pounds by just walking and eating less. No crazy workouts, no meal prep insanity, just walking. And the best part? I actually stuck with it because I didn't hate it. People get so caught up in doing the hardest thing that they forget consistency matters more. If all you can manage is walking for 30 minutes a day, do that. It's better than going all in on some brutal workout plan for a week and then quitting. Story 21. I used to think cooking was hard until I realized I just had to read the damn instructions. But no, my cooking process looked like this. Story 22. Glance at the instructions. Throw packaging away immediately, forget everything. Dig through the trash to read them again, burn half my meal while the other half is still frozen. It took me way too long to learn that following directions is not actually a personality flaw. One time I was driving with my kid and someone in a BMW cut us off. Without missing a beat, she goes, "That person must be an asshole, right?" I nearly choked on my coffee. We never explicitly told her that BMW drivers were the worst, but apparently she just observed and put two and two together. Honestly, not even mad. Proud, actually. Critical thinking at its finest. Story 29. I saw a guy at AutoZone freaking out because his check engine light was on. He was convinced his car was about to explode. The employee came out, plugged in a little code reader, and said, "It's just a loose gas cap." Took 5 seconds. The guy looked shocked. That's when I realized most people don't know you can buy a little $30 OBD2 scanner and diagnose your own car problems instead of paying a mechanic $200 to tell you your gas cap is dumb. Best purchase I ever made. Story 30. One time I was at a party and someone asked me to pass the salt. Without thinking, I blurted out, "You know, a pickle and a bottle of water will hydrate you better than just water." Silence. Then someone went, "What?" I panicked and doubled down. "Yeah, pickles have electrolytes, more than like 8 Gatorades." The table stared at me like I'd just admitted to drinking motor oil. A few weeks later, one of them texted me, "Felt like garbage, ate a pickle, fixed everything. I hate that you were right." Story 31. I asked Reddit once if flushing the occasional tampon was really a big deal. The responses were aggressive. One guy straight up told me I didn't deserve to own a house. I thought they were overreacting, until my friend's sewage backed up. Turns out those things don't break down, they just sit in the pipes like tiny, expensive pipe bombs. The plumber charged her a small fortune to fix it. So, yeah, lesson learned. Nothing goes down the toilet except toilet paper, and my will to live. Story 32. I was today years old when I learned that never own a boat is solid life advice. My neighbor bought one and spent more time fixing it than using it. One day I saw him at the dock, looking exhausted. Before I could say anything, he just sighed and went, "The two happiest days in a boat owner's life are the day they buy it and the day they sell it." I thought he was joking. He was not. Story 33. I grew up broke, so my first instinct was always to find the cheapest way to do something. Needed a new tool, spent hours hunting for a second-hand one, needed furniture, checked a million thrift stores before just buying it. One day, a friend pointed out that I was spending so much time trying to save $20 that I wasn't even considering if it was worth it. Sometimes your time is more valuable than the money you save. Took me way too long to realize that. Story 34. Reddit made me think people were experts until I saw someone confidently recommend cleaning a mirror with shaving cream. I thought, no way people actually do this. People absolutely do this. Ever since then, I fact-check everything. If I need real advice, I skip the forums and go straight to YouTube. The last thing I need is to accidentally turn my apartment into a science experiment because some internet stranger said it worked for them. Story 35. One time, I made the mistake of trusting HR. I had an issue with my manager, so I went to HR, thinking they'd help. 2 weeks later, my manager suddenly knew everything I had said, down to the exact wording. That's when it hit me. HR doesn't work for you. HR works for the company. They're not there to protect you. They're there to protect the business from you. Ever since then, I treat HR like I treat a cop who just pulled me over. Polite, but I say as little as humanly possible. Story 36. I watched a guy at work try to gamble his way into a big win. He'd spend hours analyzing stats, convinced he had an edge. I told him, dude, the odds are set by professionals who do nothing but math all day. The house always wins. He laughed me off. A year later, he was broke and selling his PS5 to cover debts. The worst part? He still thought he was just one game away from turning it all around. I swear some people treat gambling like a personality trait. Story 37. A BMW cut me off in traffic, and before I could even react, my 10-year-old muttered, "Figures!" I nearly crashed from laughing. We never explicitly taught her that BMW drivers were the worst. She just observed reality and put two and two together. Honestly, I've never been prouder. Some lessons in life don't need to be taught. They just reveal themselves. Story 38. One time I asked our plumbing if flushing one tampon was really a big deal. Their response? You don't deserve to own a house. At first I thought they were being dramatic, until my friend's sewage backed up. Turns out tampons don't break down. They just sit in pipes, waiting to create expensive disasters. That was the day I learned a simple rule. If it doesn't dissolve in water, it doesn't belong in the toilet. Story 39. A friend of mine once said, "You can find evidence to back up any opinion." I didn't believe him until I saw some guy confidently explain how welding cast iron was totally fine and would last forever. Then, an actual welder chimed in and explained why it wouldn't hold. The first guy doubled down and called him a shitty welder. That's when I realized, being right doesn't matter on the internet, being loud does. Story 40. I once left a bad review for a business in Dubai, not realizing that leaving a negative review there can literally get you detained. People started messaging me like, "Delete that right now unless you want to be pulled off a plane." I deleted that review so fast I almost broke my phone. Honestly, the more I learn about the UAE, the less I ever want to go. A wonder of the world, on paper. Story 41. I was today years old when I learned that boats are a scam. My neighbor bought one, and at first he was living the dream. Then came the maintenance, then the repairs, then the fact that he spent more time fixing it than actually using it. One day he sighed and said, "The two happiest days in a boat owner's life are the day they buy it and the day they sell it." That's when I knew I would never own a boat. I'd just find a friend who did. Story 42. I grew up poor, so my instinct was always to find the cheapest way to do things. I'd spend hours trying to save $10, checking every thrift store, hunting for deals. Then one day a friend asked me, "How much is your time worth?" That's when it hit me. Spending 3 hours to save a few bucks wasn't saving anything. Sometimes just buying the damn thing is the cheapest option in the long run. Took me way too long to realize that. Story 43. Pickles are magical. I was feeling weirdly exhausted one day, and my friend, who has an autoimmune disease, said, "Eat a pickle." I thought they were messing with me, but I tried it, and 5 minutes later I felt way better. Turns out pickles have more electrolytes than like 8 Gatorades. Ever since then, I've lived by one rule. I'm not sick until I've had a pickle and am still sick. Story 44. I once told my coworker that a pickle and a bottle of water would hydrate him better than just water. He laughed in my face. Fast forward to a week later, and he drags himself into work looking wrecked from a night out. I slide a pickle jar across the table and say, "Trust me." 10 minutes later, he's sitting up straighter, looking alive again. He stares at me like I just performed witchcraft. All I said was, "I told you, man. Science." Pickles. Nature's Gatorade. Story 45. I used to think HR was there to help employees. Then I made the mistake of confiding in HR about a workplace issue. 2 weeks later, my boss magically knew everything I had said, down to my exact complaints. That's when I realized HR isn't there to protect you. HR is there to protect the company from you. Ever since then, I've lived by a simple rule. If it's HR related, say less. Or better yet, say nothing at all. Story 46. I once watched my neighbor absolutely wreck his plumbing because he thought tampons were technically flushable. Spoiler, they are not. His pipes backed up and the plumber charged him thousands to fix it. Later, I told Reddit about it and asked if flushing one tampon was really that bad. The responses were aggressive. One guy straight up told me I didn't deserve to own a house. I thought he was overreacting until I remembered my neighbor's disaster. Moral of the story? If it's not toilet paper, don't flush it. Story 47. My dad always told me, if it flies, floats, or, rents, don't buy it. I ignored him and bought a boat. For exactly 1 summer, I felt like the king of the lake. Then the motor started acting up. Then the trailer needed repairs. Then it started drinking gas like a frat bro at happy hour. One day at the dock, I saw a guy eyeing a boat for sale. Before he could even ask, the owner sighed and said, "The 2 happiest days in a boat owner's life are the day they buy it and the day they sell it." I have never related to a stranger more. Story 48. I once saw a guy at AutoZone absolutely losing his mind over his check engine light. He was convinced his car was about to explode. The employee calmly plugged in a little OBD2 scanner, and 5 seconds later, he says, "It's just a loose gas cap." The guy looked like he'd just witnessed magic. That's when I realized most people don't know you can buy one of those little scanners for $30 and diagnose your own car problems instead of paying a mechanic $200 to tell you to tighten your gas cap. Best investment I ever made. Story 49. I used to spend hours trying to save money. Needed a tool? Checked 3 different thrift stores. Needed something simple? Drove all over town looking for the cheapest deal. Then one day, a friend hit me with, "Dude, how much is your time worth?" That's when it hit me. Spending 3 hours to save $10 wasn't saving anything. Sometimes just buying the damn thing is the real bargain. Took me way too long to figure that out. Story 50. I used to think gambling was all about skill. Then I met a guy at work who was convinced he could beat sports betting. He'd spend hours talking about how he just knew which team would win. I told him, "Dude, the odds are set by professionals who do nothing but math. The house always wins." He laughed me off. A year later, he was broke, selling his PS5 to cover debts. The worst part, he still thought he was just 1 game away from turning it all around. Some people treat gambling like it's a puzzle to solve instead of what it actually is. A slow-motion financial car crash. Story 51. Reddit made me think people were experts until I joined R Cleaning Tips. That subreddit could legally be called R How to Destroy Stuff. People were out there recommending shaving cream for glass, vinegar for literally everything, and one guy even said you could use flour to put out a grease fire. I started fact-checking everything after that. Now, if I need real advice, I don't trust internet strangers. I find a professional on YouTube. Because the last thing I need is to turn my kitchen into a cautionary tale. Story 52. I was today years old when I learned that wet pot holders can actually burn you worse than a hot pan. Apparently, if you grab something out of the oven with a damp towel, the heat flashes the water into steam and boom, instant burns. Someone told me this years ago and I laughed it off, until I did it myself. The pain was unreal. My hand was useless for a week. So yeah, thanks for the warning, Mr. 3 years too late. Story 53. A BMW cut me off in traffic, and before I could even say anything, my 10-year-old muttered, "Figures." I nearly drove off the road from laughing. We never explicitly told her that BMW drivers were the worst, but apparently she just observed reality and put it together. Honestly, I've never been prouder. Some lessons in life don't need to be taught, they just reveal themselves.